Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm always ready. Hit it.
I saw you were with them last night. I saw you were with them last night.
Yeah, that's engaging time coming to venues near you this spring and summer, folks. That's one of the better hits from Engaging Time. Sean, just a little tidbit. I debuted, Sally has heard all the songs because I'm playing them all the time, getting ready for this thing on Friday and Saturday. But I debuted my songs for my guitar teacher, one of them, on Sunday at my practice. And he texted me about 3 hours later, and he's like, dude, those songs are stuck in my head. So I'm like, okay, cool. This guy can rip shred a guitar like nobody's business. But he has told me, he said he stopped writing, and he's like, you can write and you can play. And I'm like, I look at him like, yeah, but I can't shred a guitar like you. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll play the chords. You do your thing and knock yourself out. Once I get enough patience to learn how to shred a guitar, maybe I can do that, but I'm very happy in my space right now. But that was a nice compliment to hear that this professional musician who does a lot of live shows, in fact, his group just did a show at the Des Plaines Theater, which, folks, for those of you that don't know it, the Des Plaines Theater seats about 400 people. It was a last-minute thing. They were put into a spot. Another band had to back out, and they had an hour set, and they killed it. So the fact that Rupert's telling me that, the songs are stuck in his head, I hope that doesn't jinx me, but we'll see, So welcome back, everybody. This is Your Insurance Corner. That's Sean Hauser. My name is Bill Miksch. We're doing a short history lesson about Social Security because there's been a lot of chatter on the radio and TV about Social Security being cut. I just got texted from a listener who said that he was trying to get a hold of Social Security, or a friend of his was trying to get through to Social Security. He was on hold for 20 minutes in a queue before the system said they are experiencing high call volume, so try to call back. He tried to call back 3 more times, and he said, the heck with it. So, and keep in mind, folks, the 7,000 people that are allegedly going to be cut from the system, that hasn't happened yet. So this is happening now. What I know, there's going to be some bumps in the road. There's no two ways about it. But that's not the 800-pound gorilla in the room. The 800-pound gorilla is the Social Security system. It's going broke per the trustees. And if the Congress and whoever the president is doesn't fix this, I'm going to tell you what the decrease in your benefit's going to be in 2035. Or maybe it's 2033, but either way, it's going to be decreased, and I'm going to leave that as a teaser for just a few minutes from now. Let me finish my history lesson. In April of 2000, Sean, there was a so-called retirement earnings test that used to be applied, and that retirement earnings test was eliminated except for people taking early retirement before their full retirement age. So for people at age 62, for example, they'd have to go through a formula to determine, what their benefit was going to be. And I'll just give you a for instance. So if somebody makes $80,000 a year and they wanted to take their Social Security income at age 62, I can tell you what the answer is going to be. You can take it, but when you file your taxes, the government's going to ask for all of it back because you made too much money. Earned income, you made too much money. So they're going to ask for all of it back. So
talk about earned income for a minute, Bill.
All right. Earned income is W-2.
What is that? W-2.
W-2. Yep.
In employment or as a self-employed contractor, gig worker, etc. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Whether 1099 or W-2, that's earned income. What they're not including in that is passive income, particularly investment income, 401k money, those kind of things. So if you need your Social Security income and you can get by with an income between $20,000 and $30,000 a year, you can probably take your Social Security early. Or if you've got enough 401k investments, you can defer taking it if you can tolerate it, and just live off your 401k until you get closer to your full retirement age. But I just talked to a client today who's turning 65 in June, I think, and he's now considering taking his Social Security early. And I just reminded him, I said, knock yourself out, but do the math and make sure, if you're going to go back to work, make sure you're not going to put yourself between a rock and a hard place. Then he asked an interesting question. And it had to do more with Obamacare than retirement planning. He said, well, I'm coming off Medicare. We're getting $1,000 a month subsidy because of our income at the moment. But I'm coming off, and my wife is going to be left on the plan. If we filed, and here's his question, if we filed separate tax returns, will that help her in terms of keeping a bigger subsidy? So I checked, and the answer is no. The question on the application for healthcare.gov is, what is your household income? Whether you file joint or separate, it doesn't matter. They don't make a distinction. It's household income. So I've got to call that guy back tomorrow and let him know. The only way around this is if you divorce your wife, and then that gets ugly all by itself.
So that's an important point, because I think a lot of people think that their filing status is going to be the determining factor, but don't they also look back at that?
Yes.
To see that person who says, you know what, it's better off if we file as individuals or separately, and if they can go and get a divorce, I still think the government's, I don't know what the time limit is, but they're going to look back at that and say, you didn't really get divorced, that was just a maneuver.
Yeah, it's going to depend on how they do it, what it looks like, and again, this is specifically for Obamacare. For Social Security, that may be different because it's an individual. Now it's not household income, it's your income and your income. Mm-hmm. So if the spouse who is like 62 still goes back to work and makes $20,000 a year and she wants to take Social Security, she can. She's not making enough money to make a difference. But if she goes back to work and all of a sudden she spikes the income and it goes to 50, that's going to be painful for them. Because at the end of the year, the government's going to go, oh, we're going to have to scratch back a couple, for every dollar you took in, we're going to take back $2. And that's going to get ugly. And if they're living on their investments in their 401k, now they have to take more out of their 401k, which now increases their overall income, and it just becomes a snowball effect of a problem. So you really have to pay attention. And again, there's two pieces here. One is Obamacare, which is household income, and Social Security is your income, your spouse's income. So whether you file jointly or separately, it doesn't matter. They will make a distinction there. We're almost done with the history lesson, folks. In March 17th, 2020, COVID reared its ugly head, so all the offices shut down, and that's when everybody started working remote. April 7th, 2022, the offices reopened. But what we found out was, even though they reopened, there was a lot of scared people, understandably. So they were very limited as to how many one-on-one meetings you could have. And as one of the listeners who just texted us suggested, it could take you a long time to get through to somebody. Now, I can tell you, I made a phone call to Social Security, I don't know, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and I think I was only on hold for 15 minutes. But I timed it. I called in the middle of the day, like on a Wednesday afternoon, and I got through pretty quickly. If you call on a Monday or a Friday, particularly in the morning early, you might be there a long time before you get through to somebody, because keep in mind, you're talking about people from Maine to Hawaii are all filtering into the same program. And there's only so many people that can answer the phone at the same time, and everybody's circumstance is unique. Now, this is where this is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. May 6, 2024. The trustees are projecting that the trust fund will run out of money in 2035. That's 10 years from now, right, Sean? 10 years? Mm-hmm. About the time you retire, theoretically.
What is it, 2035?
2035. I've read 2033.
That's 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
I've seen that, in the statement they usually say between 2033 and 2038.
Yeah. So this particular article came from AARP, just so you know, and it was written August 12, 2024. So that's my source on this particular item. But I'll give you that. I've seen 2033. I haven't seen 2038, but now I've seen 2035. So I think they're hedging their bets there a little bit. Either way, it's going bust. And if benefits, here's the teaser, folks. If they don't fix the system within the next 10 years, your benefit will be reduced by 17%. So, let's see. Let's say you're getting $2,500 times 0.83. It's got your benefit is now going to be reduced from $2,500 to $2,075. That's going to hurt. That's on a monthly basis. And my concern here, Sean, is the people that are making these decisions, and this is my big gripe, and you and I chatted about this afternoon. The people that are making the decisions on this all get pension plans on your and my tax dollar and guaranteed health care for life. And we let them have cake a la Marie Antoinette, and let them have their crumbs. But if we Congress don't fix the program, then we're going to punish the masses because that's what we can do. And I commented to you when this happened. I said, you know what? In the private sector, those people would be going to prison for failure of their fiduciary responsibility to maintain the pension plan, basically. They would be going to prison. And I would think, and I know the law says they can't be sued for, things that they do in office. You know what? I think you get enough people to push the envelope, somebody's going to go down, whether it's a bureaucrat or Congress. And I don't care if we have to look all the way back to 1980. Every single one of those people in Washington, Congress in particular, are responsible for this fiasco. And these are the same people that get pension plans on our tax dollar. That's intellectually offensive to me, and that's why this is such a hot button for me. Now, let me add a couple other things. Right now, almost 70 million people are collecting some level of Social Security. Let me break that down. That number accounts for $1.6 trillion with a T, trillion dollars. So if our tax burden is $6 trillion right now, we're only taking $4 trillion, and of that $1.6 trillion is Social Security. Right off the bat, we got a problem. Of the people of the 70 million or so, 51.8 million are retirees, and the average benefit is $1,975. Disabled are 7.2 million, and the average benefit there is $1,581, and the survivor benefits is 5.8 million. The average benefit is $1,546. Sean, did you know that people that never worked can actually get Social Security benefits?
Well, I understand in cases of disability, or in the case of like a child can claim survivor benefits, etc.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about spouses mostly. Somebody that didn't work.
If you never earned it, you can get a percentage of your spouse's income.
That's exactly right. I'm okay with that. I don't have any problem with that because it's that family made a choice for somebody to stay home and take care of the kids and be a homemaker, etc. That was their choice. So the benefit does allow for the surviving spouse to get. I think they get half of what the employee was going to get. So, I'm okay with all of that. You still have to take care of people. I don't have a problem with that. Let me just. We already talked about the 1% thing. Oh, the government's been borrowing money. I didn't know this. the first person to dip into the Social Security income, take a guess who the first president was to dip into the Social Security Trust Fund.
Eisenhower.
FDR.
FDR did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, we just set it up, and he didn't. FDR, he passed in what, 44?
43, 44. Yeah, I think 44. Yeah.
So this thing's like 7, 8 years old, and we're already dipping our hands in the cellar.
I just saw that. I'm like, oh my gosh, the piggy bank was open before it even got started. So what the government does, folks, is that they borrow money from the trust fund and then issue bonds, which is nothing more than monopoly money because we're $37 trillion in debt. We don't have money. We just create it out of thin air. And then they pay an interest back on the borrowed money. I don't know what the interest is because the article didn't tell me. But in other places, that would be considered stealing, I think. But because they're paying an interest rate back, it's okay.
Well, they put the interest, so it'd be like buying investments, and you would think that interest that was earned would be used to increase the trust fund, right?
Yeah, and they make
now,
the
are they doing it at 1 or 2%?
I don't know.
Which is what the Fed funds rate is, or are they doing it like what you and I would pay? But you're right. You know, what the whole idea is I have a feeling somebody's going to come up with a solution, which is just issue more money and pay these people out.
Yep. Well, here are my suggestions, Sean, and this is just, my thoughts. So I want, if there's pushback, knock yourself out. If you agree, great. There's at least two of us that agree the paint on the wall is white. So raise the income limit to $500,000. I keep hearing this mantra: tax. The rich are getting richer, and they don't pay any taxes. Go to $500,000. However, I don't want the employer to be burdened with an extra 6.2% on the excess over, let's say, 176, which is the threshold right now. It should be 6.2% of your money as an employee, my money as an employee. The employer's off the hook. Let's say the employer is on the hook up to $225,000, and then they're off. Anything over $225,000 to $500,000, the employee is putting money into the account on his own. However, I'm going to suggest something that may ruffle some feathers. For anybody who is making over $100,000 a year should be allowed to invest some of that money outside of the Social Security Administration into the S&P 500, some index. It can't be individual stocks or mutual funds. It's just the index, whether it's Russell, S&P, Dow, whatever. And my choice would be the S&P 500 index. Allow them to invest that money, because at the end of the day, that portion of their money comes back to their family. And yes, there's a risk because the market goes up and it goes down. As we saw again today, the market took another whack, and I don't think it's done by a long shot, sadly. But raise the threshold to $500,000, the employer threshold to $225,000, but anything excess of $225,000, that should be the employee's money in real money. And frankly, drop it down to $100,000 and allow a portion of that money to be invested personally, so that can be offloaded to the family or the survivors, just like a 401k. That's first. Any comments about that?
W had talked about doing that and privatizing Social Security, and what you're doing is shifting the burden from the government of having to guarantee you an income to just it becomes from a defined benefit plan to a defined contribution plan.
Right. No different than
put that money in, and then you're you're on the risk and whim of the market. So maybe it's S&P 500 or Treasuries.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, because at least
One of the, if you're that risk averse, you put half in one and half in the other.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. I agree with you. I think it's a good idea.
I love that. Treasuries is great. Money market, same. Treasuries, great. I love all that idea because, to your point, a lot of people are risk adverse. And I think what's going on right now, there are some people that are pulling out of the market because they see more coming. And these people are going to forget that they pulled out of the market, and 3 years later, it's popped back up, and the rich just got richer, and they forgot. That's what I'm afraid is what's going on now, because that's why I think there's more pain to come. All right, limit the government borrowing. This means they have to live within the government means. Now, I will give them some lateral room if there's a war or something else that's going on, and they absolutely have to borrow to do whatever. Okay, fine. The problem is that we're $37 trillion in debt, folks. We don't have that much more room to borrow before we're going to cause ourselves to start talking Chinese. I'm saying that facetiously, but we don't have...
You're going to own all the debt, right?
Yeah, so... With somebody, if we're gonna make money out of thin air, somebody's gonna buy that debt, and at some point, somebody may call it in, and we're not gonna be able to pay it. So maybe the government has to live within their means, dare I say, just like a company or a corporation. And if they can't, somebody has to go. It has to go. Some benefits, like entitlements, are gonna have to be rearranged. In 1983, Tip O'Neill and Reagan did this whole schedule. I think the schedule is going to have to be redone, which is my next thing. The full retirement age for anybody less than 50 years old should be raised from 67 to 70, but do it gradually. And truth be told, a lot of people are still working at 70, either because they want to or because they have to. But still allow them, if they wanted to early retirement, they can. Just have the formula to go, okay, this is just like they have now. Have the formula built there, so if you want to retire early, knock yourself out. If you were able to put together $1.5, $2, $3 million, maybe you've earned the right to be able to do that. Then it's a matter of, do you need the Social Security or not? And if you do the earned income test or whatever you want to do, but allow those people that want to be able to retire early, do it. The next one is pension plans at the federal government have to go. They have to go. Can't afford them. Why do you think employers in the private sector, Sean, don't have pension plans anymore? Very few of them.
Couldn't stomach the risk.
Yeah. And here's what happens, folks. What you don't know or may not know, I don't mean to be presumptuous, what you may not know is that those pension plans are actuarially calculated every year. And right now, the market's going down, right? So the pension underwriters have to look at this and go, well, the pension plan just dropped by $2 million. Mr. Employer, in order to get the pension plan back up to snuff, you're going to have to put in $2 million of your own money. And that's when they have the heart attack right there. That's when they're like, oh, my God, I can't do this. How do we get out of this? It's painful to get out of a pension plan. I think it's like a 25% tax penalty, but that may be the path of least resistance, comparatively speaking, to have to fund a $2 million and you don't have it. Because now you're... Go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead. I was going to say, a lot of employers are doing just that. They're freezing their pension, and then they're maybe converting to a cash pension, meaning they're going to define how much cash they put in, but they're not guaranteeing that it's going to be a specific income.
Right.
That's happened to me at two banks that used to have pensions. All of them used to, but then they started saying, no, we're going to stop guaranteeing you 82% of your salary whenever you retire. Now we're going to give you this amount of money, and that's it.
Right. I know a listener just texted me, and I will have to get back to you next week, or I'll call you offline. We're coming to the end of the hour. The last one I would tell you, Sean, is either make Social Security not taxable, which has been floated by Trump, or raise the earned income limit from this ridiculous number of 30,000 or whatever, 44,000, to a more reasonable number of $50,000 or $80,000, so people can maintain their lifestyle. They're affected by inflation just like the rest of us, and if they're capped on their income to receive Social Security, they're going backwards. It doesn't matter. They're going backwards. So these kind of things are some of the things I'm floating. Any thoughts about that?
No, I think a lot of what we've said tonight makes a lot of fiscal sense. I think the last thing we should do is require the president to pay the cost of using Air Force One every weekend to play golf.
Well, I don't disagree with that. If I don't know what the rules are, but we're at the top of the hour. I just want to share one thing. We're at and I know we're going to go over. Sorry, Chris. You know what? I'm going to save this message for next week. It's kind of important, and I need about 3 minutes to do it. So we're at the end of the show, Sean. Thank you for joining me as usual. A lively conversation. We're going to talk more about this stuff as we go. We're going to come back to annuities next week, folks, but I wanted to have a chat about this. This is 101.5 FM, WLCB, Slade's Corner, Wisconsin. That's Sean Hauser. My name is Bill Miksch. Have a great week. And have a good weekend, everybody. Stay safe. See you later.